My name is Maya Rada Spice, all the way from Brandon, Manitoba. I would like to acknowledge that we are located on the traditional territories of Treaty Number 1, Treaty Number 2, and the shared traditional lands of Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, Dene, and Anishinaabe peoples, and the homeland of Métis Nation. A little bit about me. I came to Canada in 2010 as international student to pursue my PhD. My background is more in veterinary sciences and animal sciences and nutrition. Here in Canada, I feel most connected to the land, peoples, animals, and plants in Hollow Water First Nation in Manitoba. For the past few years, I've been working with a few First Nations communities, individuals, non-for-profit organizations, also universities, University of Manitoba, University of Winnipeg, applying for funding and different areas, environment, climate change, entrepreneurship, cultural healing, education, economic development, and we've been successful in few of those funding applications. Currently, I'm a postdoctoral fellow working with Waniskatan, also in University of Manitoba, in few projects that are more related to environment, food, and health. So yeah, for new attendees, please again introduce yourself in the chat section and say what are your strengths of your community and or organization, and what do you expect from these workshops. The morning session, just to briefly go over what we're gonna do in the next 4 hours. The morning session will be 2 hours long, from 11 to 1 p.m. And then we'll have 1 hour lunch break, 1 to 2. And then at 2 p.m., we go for the afternoon session. For the morning session, we are looking at applying for governmental government-funded application, in this case, Guardians Program, Indigenous Guardians Pilot Program. So after introductions, we go for a quick recap of session 1 while answering some of the questions from that sessions, and then we continue on what we left off, budget and work plan. That was left off on Friday, and then we're gonna go more in depth into Indigenous Guardian Pilot Program's application. And then we will have a guest speaker that talks about some of the tips of and the stories that they have to share as successful applicant for the Guardians program. And then PM session will be facilitated by Asfia Camel. She's gonna talk more about non-governmental funding applications. And this is an interactive workshop. So if you're not, so it will be recorded and it will be later shared publicly in our website and on our Facebook page. So if you're not comfortable with your information being shared, you can always email me or Emily and let us know so we can remove that section. Our tech department would remove this section from the recording. All right, so hi Larissa, I can see your chat. Okay, so I'm gonna share a PowerPoint from the previous session, and we will have a recap on what we talked about. All right, I'll share a screen. Okay, so we talked about how if you have an idea, you're going and searching for what are some of the available funding that matches your idea, and then after you find a funding that actually matches or close to what you need or what your idea is, then you're going to go through either their application or their website, and then there are certain parts that you will see. What are those parts that you usually see in any kind of formal funding application. So here there's a little bit of overview that you usually see that it explains what that funding is for, how much they fund, what's the goal of the funding, and what's the scope of the funding. And usually a scope explains what exactly they are looking for. So that's the part that you match with your idea or your need. And then they will, so in case of like Guardians program, they have those, this is a tier 1 First Nations Guardians new initiative, and they explain like what kind of projects they fund and what why this is called like a new initiative. And then another important part that you usually see is your eligibility. So they explain who is eligible for this specific funding. And, in this case, in Guardians program, we have First Nation communities, nations, governments, and representative organization. Also, there will be eligible expenditures that usually later match with your eligible activities that you can do if you're going to apply for this funding. So in this case, they also talk about what activities they will fund, and then so the budget and expenditure part of the application would match these activities later. So I'm going to go quickly a little bit. So if there's a part that you need more clarification, right, let me know in the chat section, and then I'll go through it again. So when you see this information, there's also an application package that you can get either from the website. It's already there, the application forms, the application guideline, question that has been asked previously, budget and work plan template. But they're all sent, usually they're in the website, or you have to ask for them through email. So they can send it directly to you. In case of Guardians program, you have to actually email them to get the application package, but we have the package and it's already been shared with you. And I guess it's also in the COVID-19 Indigenous website to download. You also can see the deadline for applications there. This is very important. You have to follow exactly the deadline. In this case, they even have the time. So it's November 30th or end of this month, and it has to be before midnight Pacific time. They also usually explain a little bit about when they will inform you about the results. And then when do you have the money, and when the activities has to be completed. So in this case, they want everything to be done by March 2022. This information will help you to actually expand this into your budget and timeline. So from the time, assuming that this comes in the summer, to the time that actually this ends and activities has to be completed, then you have to fit your timeline and your budget within this timing. We also explain or talk about a little bit about goals, objectives, and outcomes, and what the difference of those are. So goals are very general, they're broad, they're brief statements of intent and the vision that you have for your idea and for this funding. They're not specific, they're not measurable, and they're not attainable. So, but when we are moving to objective, then objectives are usually very specific. So there are 5 different characteristics that goes to objectives. So objectives has to be specific, measurable, realistic, and time-bound, or a SMART, if you look at the acronym. So what does a specific means it has to be detailed. It has to be well-defined. You know who is gonna do what, for who it has to be done, and for whom. So the strategies that you're going to choose, also the action verbs that you're going to choose, they are all important when you're writing down your objective. So objectives has to also lead to very specific outcomes and results. So I'll go through some examples. I had some questions in the last session that were asking for more examples. I'll go through some examples later to clarify that what does outcome here means and how a specific outcome has to be. Another characteristic of objective is measurable. So it talks about numbers, either quantitative or qualitative data. You might have surveys. You might do some research on the land. You might have numbers that you are looking at, and then you can obtain those numbers while you're doing your project. So, and then you can also measure them in a way that if any changes happen in those numbers, you can see those changes and you can report those changes and share those changes with your community or organization. They also have to be achievable, means it has to be realistic and it has to be feasible and actionable. So you have to look at, what resources you have, the time that you have, and make sure that you can actually do this project within that time and the resources that you do have. And you also have to be aware of the limitation and constraints that this project might bring and be able to identify those and mention those in your application. And if you have also the capacity to do this type of work, so have you done this type of work before? Have you done it successfully? And you can actually present that and show that you have done project like this before. And then it has to be realistic. So again, the same. So it has to be done within the time frame, and it's it's realistic within the culture of your organization and community, and that you can do this project within the time frame that you do have. And also, resources and conditions that you have so you can actually achieve this. And then time frame, we already talked about that. So usually a lot of applications, they have deadlines, and you have to be able to do your projects within the deadline. But there are some projects that they don't. They're open-ended. So, but what I've noticed in my applications has been like as soon as they are in the website and the call is out there, it's better to start thinking about applying because they have certain amount of money that they have to finish. And then, there's always a lot of applicants that come in, and the sooner you apply, the higher chance you have that you can reach that funding. There's also certain fundings that open up, they're emergency funds. So they open up like, kind of as emergency. Some of the organization also have some funding that's been allocated to them, and they have to spend by certain time. So you have to always kind of watch that if those fundings are available, and apply as soon as you can, even if there's no due date, to make sure that you can reach those fundings. So far, we said that objectives are very important because the more you actually have clarity in your objectives and have those characteristics very well thought of and incorporated into your objective, then you actually have clear work plan, clear outcome, and in general, a clear application. So I have few examples from our previous applications to clarify more what objectives, goals, outcomes are, and that they're not like written in a stone. So there are certain flexibility within those, and how you actually can find those flexibility, and how you can, if you have a clear objective, how you can actually expand it to different part of your application. All right. So we had this exercise in the last workshop about like writing your SMART objective. So all of you that are here, I'm sure you have ideas and they're looking for funding for. So one of the first, one of the first areas that you have to develop when you have an idea is like develop it to a SMART objective kind of a template. So you expand in different parts. This is, as I said last time, I think like writing proposals is a very creative process. So you have to sit down and see what your idea is, and then expand it to when and with who and what exactly you want to do. And then you also, what do you need to measure to actually get some data, some information about your idea, and then how you want to do all this, and what is the reason behind all this. So why are you wanting to do this project? What kind of a need or what kind of a gap are you trying to fill in your community or in your organization? And also, what are you going to measure? Who is going to do all those measurements? With who you're going to work? So um, here, as you see, this is a smart objectives, but I also copied part of there's a proposal, there's an application that we filled about like a year ago with Community Futures. And when you look at their application guideline, they talk about outcomes being a smart. So what does that mean? We're talking about objectives being a smart. So why are they mentioning outcomes being a smart? So what I realize is objectives and outcomes are very, very related. So in a way that if you have a clear objective, you also have a very clear outcome. So so these are not, as I said, written in a stone. So as long as you have the smart characteristic there, you can fit it within your objective. You can fit it, within your outcome. You can fit it within your activities of your proposal, as well as, it has to also match with your timeline and the budget that you're preparing for your proposal. So I don't know. So far, is there any questions? I'm going to give you some more examples, but is there any questions so far? Okay, so there's a question. Where can we find this call for applications website? So Irene asked that. So if you're looking for, we are talking about Guardians or any other funding that you found. So last time we looked for, different, we looked at what ideas we have, what are we looking for funding. And then we went to Google and we searched, different, possibilities that we have within that, within the funding applications and what is available. In terms of Guardians program, if you actually go to their website, you can find all this information or part of this information. They don't have the application itself, but they do have the application, some information like about eligibility, eligible activities, who to contact, and things like that. But also they say that for getting the application package, you have to contact them directly. And then that's where you get the entire application package. For the call for applications, as soon as you contact some of these funders, they add your email address to their list. So the next time they actually have a call for application open, they will email you. So let's say last year you emailed them and you got the package, and then they'll save your email address, and then next year they'll email you right after this year's funding actually, or next year's funding is open. So that's another way to get all those calls within in your mailbox. So the more you actually expand your network, the more you try to contact all these people, all these funders, actually more you're informed about all these applications and fundings that are coming. And then Kimberly asks, there are other organizations out there like that TD call for a proposal we looked at last time. There was funding available for 3 areas. Can you share it in the chat room? Yeah, so yeah, we talked about the TD. That TD was, we were talking about like a difference between governmental and non-governmental funding. And non-governmental funding is, it doesn't come from the government. And usually it's through institutions, community organizations, foundations, that they sometimes come together and have, they try to distribute the money to different causes that they believe in. So in case of TD, there is, they have a funding, and that's for environment. I will share it with you later. These chats will be saved and I can get in touch with you and share it. I also can search it in the break and then I'll share it to everyone. Okay, so going back to some of the examples of the objectives, outcomes, and goals. So this is a part of a proposal we wrote to climate change and health adaptation program, which is a federally funded program. We were looking for a greenhouse. As you see here, they have the objectives, and this is a funded project. So we were able to get funding. All of these examples, they were the ones that we actually were able to get funding for. And as you see here, the objectives is quite general. So we're not really going to details of, what we're gonna do, with who we're gonna do all this. It's more look like goals. So it's like to improve community food access, availability, self-sufficiency, and then to increase community awareness, participation, and more looking at nutritious and holistic food production, and then also has like an element of youth training. So these are all very general. And then within their actually objective section, they had like some question. One was, what will a successful project look like? So this is basically the outcome. So outcome here is also very general. So we're not really going into those smart characteristics here. So we're looking at, again, sharing healthy food choices within the community, youth education, and then also importance of nutrition and self-sufficiency. But when we go into activities, then we're starting to become more and more specific and more having those smart elements there. So here we're talking about like, what is going to be done. It's going to be like greenhouse supplies that, they'll be provided to the community. Then there'll be, people hired to run the greenhouse. There'll be like, workshops, there'll be harvesting, preservation, canning workshops, cooking workshops, and then how we're going to communicate all these results to the community through reports, through a recipe book. So that shows that you don't need to necessarily have all the elements of a SMART in your objective, but it's good to have it when you start applying for any funding application, and then you can actually put it in different parts of your application based on what they want. But you have to have those written down or in your mind when you're actually going and starting an application. So the second proposal, this is again from Community Futures. This is a funded project. So here, that's the proposal that they were asking for a SMART outcomes. So here in the outcomes section, you see that everything has been opened and expanded. So we're talking about like who we're gonna hire, who is gonna be paid, how much they're gonna be paid, and then a little more details about like how this gonna be communicated with with the community, and then when it goes to goes to the bottom here, you can see that also it talks about generals too. Like, it is the combination of talking generally about the outcomes, but also going into a specifics of, measures and who and with whom and how we're going to communicate this, because this specific funding was asking for a SMART outcomes. So as you see, there's this flexibility there. And then the last, the last example I have here is Waniskotan. It's not a governmental, it's a non-government. It's actually right now it's more like a combination of community and other institutions that come together and fund projects. So it's a kind of a complex organization. So it's not just one specific funder that we are looking at. And they have goals and objectives in this. This is again a funded project. So goals, very general. Objectives also not going too much into, specific. And then outcomes also is not that specific. It's more again, looking at generally what we are looking for when we are looking at outcomes. But when they go into activities, they explain everything into detail. So, again, how they get their samples, uh, you know, um, and then what do they do with the samples? Where do they even send those samples to be tested? How they, how they share their results after the results comes out, with who are the partners they are working with, and who others, like what type of activities they do with each, either partner, or there are different roles that's been assigned for these activities. So these are all showing that you don't need to be very specific again, and it's different in terms of what funding you're looking for. But by having that as smart objectives, properly worked on, you reflect on what you really want and how you really do it, then you can actually write a strong proposal regardless of what they want. Okay, so we also talk about other parts or other sections that we might see in any funding application. One is the governance. For example, they can be, you could see different wording that's been used. Governance could be project management. Some funding applications, they're not very sensitive about like having the governance part in there. So, in this case, we are looking at Guardians applications. They are very specific about the governance and who is actually applying, and how that organization or nation has the capacity and has shown that they have been trying to take care of land, waters, animals, and ice. And then also they have their own constitutions, laws, policies, membership defined. They want you to provide them with a map of areas that you are wanting to take care of, or there are concern around those areas. So to have that map, again, you need to have certain capacity, you need to have certain authority. And then showing that there's youth that will be engaged, there is and has been engaged in the past, or have been engaged in the past. So so the element of youth and also knowledge holders, there is that relationship, and there is that relationship building that has been going on within your organization, or your community. And you're able to see the risks, the strategies, and have like clear vision for your community or organization. Another section is capacity. So the capacity actually shows that if you have enough tools or means to make this project happen. So you have to have, if you're a community or organization, have you been doing projects like similar projects, activities in the past that also supports this specific a specific goals of this funding, but also any other project that shows like your capacity. So you've been able to start a project and end a project, and then showing that you want to build more capacity, and then you have certain relationships within your community and outside the community. You have done your outreach, so you have funding available from other sources. It could be in kind, which in kind I'll explain in the budget a little more. And then you have the need for the initiative, and then you are able to see what is the concern that you're going to address with this funding. And then cultural inclusion, you're able to have, again, either, elements of bringing like elders, bringing knowledge holders, and then have that within this, proposal. In Guardians, they are actually put a lot of emphasis on, bringing youth and knowledge holder together, and being able to also do work within your own language, or bringing part of the language back to the community. And is there is like training around language. So that is, so this is a part that we've seen, in Guardians application, but there might also be, other applications. I see that right now, the importance of, self-determination. It's coming from your community. It's coming from your own language. It's coming from, the relationship building within the community is getting more and more clear within federal fundings, and they're having that as part of a lot of applications right now, which is, good to know. And so however, we have only we have like the language in this one, but I've seen also language, for example, in some other applications. Depends again to the scope of the application. And then, community support and engagement. Again, you are able to work within the community. You are able to work with the leadership of your community. This specific funding needs BCR, band and council resolutions. You need to show that you have the support of the government in your, community, but also if there's other organizations you work with within your community, such as the health center, a school, showing that support, showing or having a letter from them that show that, you can actually work together, you are going to work together, and, they are going to, what they're going to do, are they going to provide, that engagement between, students and knowledge holder, for example, in terms of school, or are they going to do like, they're going to provide you with in-kind, support, which means like, for example, in health center, someone going to come and do the sampling, or, go to the waters. And if you're looking at the water in this case, getting samples of water. So, and this is pretty much in kind. So they're not really getting paid for that, but they're putting their time and their expertise into this specific funding. So, and then also showing that this gonna expand in the future, this relationship and this support gonna expand, and it will be maintained throughout the project. And then partnership, a lot of fundings don't really like fund you 100%. So they say that, especially if you're looking at federally funded, applications. So they want to see that you have other sources of funding. These other sources of funding could be confirmed or could be in the process. Even showing that you are trying to reach out to other sources of funding for your project has a very positive, impact in your application. So partners that you're looking, there might be provincial government, might be like industry partners, could be other indigenous groups, foundation, non-governmental fundings, it could be universities, a lot of federally funded programs. Sometimes they say that they don't want any other federally funded funding that comes from other sources of government. They usually don't accept that. They're looking for other sources like non-governmental or foundations or universities. So specifically, if you are applying for Guardians, it's good to show that you have, non-governmental sources of funding available. It could be even, in kind, but through other organization in your own community. But that is a very important piece in any applications that, any funding applications that you are going to do now or in the future. Okay, so last time we stopped here. This is the budget template for Guardians program. The budget has different parts. I'm going to actually go to the original Excel file.
I just wanted to make sure, Maya, that you saw my message, just letting you know that Linda is here. As soon as yeah, you're ready to go.
Okay, sure. If Linda is okay, we can go ahead after the break. Hi, Linda, are you here? I can actually briefly talk to you if you're here. So Linda is from a Split Lake First Nation. They have received the Guardians funding in previous years, and she's here to share, some of her experiences. But I'm wondering if we can do this after, after the break, so around noon. We'll have her speak more about, how they applied for funding, what kind of impacts the funding had in their community, and share, the stories around the Guardians. All right, so, and thanks, Hannah. So we're moving into the budget. So as you see here, they have a template provided for, looking at what type of fundings you're looking for in every category. However, they are saying that this is just an example. So you can actually change this based on, scope of your project and what kind of funding you're looking for. So they categorize it based on, salaries, the management, travel expenses, supplies that you might need, equipment that you might need, in terms of like vehicles and operational expenses that you have. So do you need to get an office space? Is there a lease for that? But again, this is something that you can change based on what kind of projects you're applying for. But all the funding applications, budget is a very important section in there. And they mostly look the same. I'll show you another example at the end, for another funding, again, federally funded program. But all of them have the categories that you can identify yourself. And then they have the description of, activities that you're going to do. So pretty much your budget has to tie in your activities of your projects within the budget. So, so if you're talking about salaries, for example, describe what is this salary for and who's going to be paid for and what type of, which part of project is this related to. So, and then they have the total budget, Guardians Fund, other funds, in kind, and breakdown of other funding. So what are these? So in the Guardian Fund is what you're actually asking for. So how much you're asking for salaries and wages in this case. What kind of other funds you have available that also gonna go towards salary and wages? Not from Guardians, but from other sources that you have. Is there any kind of in-kind that goes there? So what in-kind is, again, is like, services, time, and, skills that, community members or different organizations put in your, funding, but they don't charge you. So what they do, they put their time, they put their skills, they put their, expertise there. They spend that into your, into your funding applications. That's what in kind is. And, for example, you might have someone in the community that gonna, come to the, if you're having a greenhouse, you come to the greenhouse and, take care of, the greenhouse 2 hours a day, and they're not gonna charge you. So that is have like certain value. So this amount of money could have been paid to this individual, but they're not charging you. So this money goes in here in kind. So it has to be in, it has to be kind of like translated into like how much these services and how much this expertise actually worth. And then breakdown of other funding. So if you have other fundings here, you have a total number of, let's say, $100. So $20 of it comes from this source and $80 of it comes from the other source. So you have to kind of break down which other fundings you have. And then are sources confirmed or not? So, when we're applying for, community futures, we had 4 other fundings that we had in process, but only one of them was confirmed. So, but we put down that, we have these 4 fundings that we've applied. And this is the maximum that we ask for. And only one has been confirmed for this amount, but the other 3, we're just waiting for the response. And usually by the time that they decide to fund you or not, they decide to fund you, they will ask, so did you get the other funding did you hear back from the other funding? So that's how the entire kind of in-kind and other fundings and partnership usually works. So one of the important parts is like, again, you know, when you were writing down your SMART objectives, you're actually writing down also the activities that are related to those SMART objectives. But also, you have to make sure those activities are eligible within this specific funding. So the eligible activities are usually listed within either the guideline or the website for the funding. In terms of Guardians funding, I'm going to open the website and you can see, you know, where actually they mention what they fund. So if you are looking at these categories have to be the categories that they fund. If you go, and some actually mention what they don't fund. I don't think I've seen that in the terms of Guardians program. They, in the question and answers, they say what they don't fund, but they don't have a list of non-eligible activities. But there's some funding that actually have that list. So yeah, I'm going to stop sharing this. All right, so if you go to website, to Guardians program website, Indigenous Guardians Pilot Program. So down here, they have eligible organizations, but then they also have eligible activities. So when you are looking at, again, your budget or anything you want to do within the scope of this funding, you have to fit within this eligible activities. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to move on into, you know, more like a timeline of your project. Okay, let me see. It could be called timeline or work plan. You know, it could be called other things, but anyway, it talks about what, you know, what kind of activities you're doing in when you're doing it. So what is the start date? What is the end date? So I'm going to share. All right, I'm going to share the Guardians program template. All right, so I do have the budget up here, so I'm gonna just close the budget. Okay, but you see, right now you're seeing the timeline, right? Does everybody see the work plan? Is that what you see?
Yes, that's what we can see.
Okay, okay. So when you're looking at the work plan, again, you see there's here within the Guardians programs, you know, template, they have the task numbers, and then they have the activities related to those numbers, and then the description of those activities. So for example, they have this example that the first activity you're going to do, you usually start with what's your, you know, based on the timeline and based on the activities of your project. So if you're going to start with gathering information from elders and knowledge holders, this is your number one. So there has to be that flow. So first you're going to gather information from elders. So, and what kind of a task or activity that addresses? That is going to identify the concerns about fish and water. And then there's the start date. In this case, they put April as a start date. However, in their website, they're talking about funding being actually available in summer. So you might get the funding, you know, in summer, but I believe that they want you to start the date from April 2021, because this is an annual or 1 year type of funding. So it starts in April and ends in March. So April 2021 will be the start, and then March 2022 will be the end. So here, you know, they, you know, you put like how many months or what kind of a time you need to finish this certain activity. So you start in April and end in May, and you kind of show it here. You know, April and May, as you see, is like, you know, has a filled with a different color. So that shows that this is where you want to do this activity. And then again, you move to the second one, which is guardians training. What is the activity you're looking at? Train for boat safety and wilderness safety. And you think that this can be done again within the time of April and May. So, you highlight that area within the calendar. Same with other activities. So that's how most of the work plans look like. Again, this is the important part is like to match this with the start and end date of the funding. And then you can also, these are again just examples, and you can change them and modify them based on, what your funding or your project is all about. Is there any question? I'm gonna see one chat here. Okay. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing. And then I'm gonna share another example that I had. If I can actually find it. Yeah. Yeah, I think it goes to my PowerPoint. Find a hollow weather. All right, for some reason I can't really find my PowerPoint or my, sorry, PDF. That's what I'm looking for. Okay. I think I did find it. So I'm actually gonna go to right here. So if you look here, there is work plan and timeline. Here, this is the funding that again we applied for a greenhouse. I shared some of the objectives and outcomes from this funding. This was applied. We applied to climate change and health adaptation program. So how they want it here is like the same. They want the activity number, what the activity is, the timeline. It goes, instead of having like from this to that date, you mention, how many months you need. Either it's like August, September, October, or you can say like August to October. And then what factors affecting the timing. So some of the, limitations and risks that you might, anticipate that comes up and might change your timing. And then what are the project objectives? So how are these like activities are connected to the objectives of your project? So as you see, there's a little bit of a difference in here. But then when you go to the budget part, which is down here, they have the expenses, description of expenses, and then how much you want from the Indigenous Services Canada, or how much funding you want from climate change and health adaptation program, how much funding you have from other sources. So it's not as complex as, breaking it down and stuff like that you had in Guardians program. And then here they have it associated activity. So what you do is like you connect this with your activity sheet. So you have an activity numbers over here somewhere. Here. So you have the activity numbers when you're talking about your work plan. And then you say, when you're going to your budget, you actually talk about how, instead of having a separate, part for the activity, they just, wanted what is the activity number that you're going to finish and achieve within that, time and within your budget. So how much money is going to that certain activity. Okay. Any questions? Right. So I'm going to share the PowerPoint. All right. So we covered the work plan and budget. And then another part that you see in pretty much all the applications is the evaluation criteria or assessment criteria. So how do they evaluate your application? So in this case, in the Guardian, so well, a general evaluation criteria as any other application is like clarity of objectives, clarity of detailed work plan and detailed budget, or clarity of all those. And also they have some specific evaluation criteria. So in this case, in Guardians, which is like a specific means it's, based on what you're applying for. They want, to see that you improve community relationship, either within your community, within your organization, or between different First Nation communities. It could be the land users, and it also could be with all the partners that you have in this project, government itself, researchers, universities, so the more partners you bring and the more you show that you're going to improve those relationships, the higher chance you have to get this funding. And then again, you're putting a lot of attention into getting other type of funds, non-governmental funding specifically, are also in-kind contribution, which all shows like your relationship and your connections to all different sources and capacity that you have. And then increase in First Nations presence on the land and waters. So these are specific criteria. Again, based on what you're applying for, this might change. And then also there, after you did all this, then you need to submit your package. How do you do that? So they usually tell you, again, deadline, where to send your application. They send you a checklist to make sure that you have all those different documents that's needed. In this case, I believe they want the application form, work plan, budget. Those three are almost in all funding, you have to have those, but also they want the map of the area that you're going to get the funding for, and it's the area of concern for you. And then, the contact information is there, and then the deadline. These are some of the things that you have to, make sure you have those information before being able to submit your application package. Okay, maybe we have about 5 to 7 minutes break, so we come back and we will have Linda talking about their experiences and a story around Guardians program.
And just to quickly introduce myself, my name's Hannah, and I'm part of the team with the COVID Indigenous Project and Winniskatan that's organizing this workshop. Just helping out behind the scenes. But I'll just quickly introduce Linda, because she and I have been talking this whole morning trying to figure out how she can connect. And they got a huge snowstorm in Split Lake this morning. So it's been a bit of a hectic morning for her, it sounds like. So thanks very much, Linda, for still figuring everything out. Yeah, and joining us, and even just calling is awesome. And so if people, like I said, it's kind of hard to tell if people are back or not, but I'll just assume that a few people are back and we'll get started again. Linda was part of a team of people at Split Lake that was successful, that applied for the Indigenous Guardians Program and was successful in that. So we wanted to bring her on just to talk about how they were able to do that, just as an example of what successfully applying for a program like this looks like. And so she'll speak for a little bit, and then if anyone has questions for her, feel free to either put them in the chat, or maybe we can do like a little question and answer after she's done, if people want to say their questions on through Zoom as well. So Linda, hopefully that's enough of an introduction, and yeah, thanks for being here, and I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, good morning, afternoon. Okay, like TCN is located in northern Manitoba. It's about 1 hour and a half away from Thompson. Okay, I'll just be brief as I can, so to save time. Okay, TCN received a 1-year grant from Environmental and Climate Change for the funding. That was in 2020. This fund was meant to support initial work and planning and establishing this program for the community. We got the maximum amount. Okay, it was for the salaries and the training, safety equipment needs for the program. And it was supposed to be spent by March 20th, and we're just going into our second year. When we first applied for it, when we first found out about the program, we had to, well, of course, we had to get support letters from the chief and council for the call for applications. And we had to inform our staff and team at the office. And then we had to gather and brainstorm on what did we actually need to do to bring this program, to get our meetings or our emails and get everything working and get our working group together. And that was the initial stages of that. Okay, right, as up to date, when we got the money, we hired 2 guardians, and they've been working on to acquire the office. We got the office equipment, safety equipment for them, for their work, for their researching training. And right now we're working on our GSI training. The first day we got the power tools, the computer training and cost sharing from other programs. And right now we're also waiting for a training for the BEAR program. It's for 6 weeks, and it's sharing capacity and training with the other communities around the ones that got their Guardians funding. Okay, and also, like right now, like with the Tasquiat, like any other First Nation, are currently under an emergency mandated lockdown to protect the community against the threat of COVID-19. Okay, but as soon as we are very confident once these restrictions are lifted, I'm pretty sure our plans and our activities will continue as scheduled, because the funding that we receive is very important for the work to continue for TCN and our offices. So the chief and council are right now in full support, and then we're just doing reports, and we're doing work on a community, the Guardians right now, like research stuff and activities, because right now there's issues like safety, like from this virus. Like I'm pretty sure that the safety of all TCN community is their safety is first, is priority right now, and we have to follow all the policies and procedures from the pandemic team and leadership right now. But just to let you know that we are still trying to work as much as we can. And right now also they are part of we got the other proposals that they are working on, and they are helping out in those areas. And like for us, the Guardians program, it started. We're just going in a second year of the Guardians program, and it was really good that we got it. I think it's an excellent opportunity for our youth, for them to get to know and to protect our land and resources, because we've been severely impacted by hydro development in our area since the 1950s. And this is we have our resource area um, has about, we occupy 7% of Manitoba. And so that's what we're trying to protect. Basically, what we had in our proposal is to our people, like we know that our people have always been the stewards of the land, and the Guardian program is not a new project, or nor is it a new concept, where it is our way of life, right? Like this is a program that we get all our elders together and our youth, like as mentioned before, when somebody made that presentation there. And then we make sure that our elders are part of it, and we work together with our knowledge keepers also. And we try to take them out on a land. Right now with the threat of this virus, and we have to be really careful. And also I'd like to mention that the future of our TCN territory, our lands and our waterways and all our species are dependent on us for to protect and preserve these lands and resources. And we need and with this proposal that we did, we are trying to establish first a strong foundation with many support systems in place to make this very successful. And I think that's very important. Right now, our guardians, as stated in our proposal, the activities we are currently working on right now is that they're patrolling our lands and waters. Right now, they are the eyes and ears of the TCN territory, and the overall intent of this is to carry on the work left to them by our elders that have passed on, to manage and respect our culture and history through the traditional laws, to protect our whatever left of our resources. And I have to stress that the importance of that. And right now we are also there's the most important thing that we are trying to build on is building capacity and training for them. As like we had a training through the BEAR program, which it's currently on hold through this mandated lockdown. And so right now we're just waiting for but I think what we're trying to do is right now we're trying to streamline to get this training off the ground. But there's 3 communities that are helping, trying to get this training. And right now, the training needs that we included for them is monitoring the lands, collecting traditional plants, berries, wildlife knowledge, and how to use these tools for the community, like medicine, harvesting, and then also, and I think it's very important for them to also know the safety rules and regulations, we had purchased boats and motors, and they have their own trucks, and right now we are in the stages of purchasing their snowmobiles so they can have more access to go out on the land, because we are situated right in the middle of a river, but we have to ensure that it's safe first before they can go out. So right now, they are like, we see them as the frontline workers between the constant threat of our territories, people coming into our territory, the industries coming in. But at the same time, we are trying to work with everyone that comes in. like we're trying to strengthen the stewardship of our planning for our land use. We're also in the middle of developing our land use plan, and they are also the main people that are planning in collaboration with us in that. And we're trying to establish all these positive work ethics to like for them to enforce these regulations, policies for like the fishing and hunting restrictions. Once we establish our land use plans. Right now, it's it's being developed. It's not done yet. I mean, we're taking our time doing that because we want to do a good job. Right now, they are doing like for us, we're going into our second year, and right now they are also involved in the caribou monitoring, like the migration of our caribou goes through our lands, and basically safeguarding our environment. And they're also working with us on our research and monitoring activities. We have a lot of programs that we are developing at our Lands and Resources Office. And right now, like the fish program, a species at risk proposals, and like just also planning for like looking at areas where taking care of the sacred sites, the ancestral sites, and most of our building the capacity goals we had pointed out in our proposal. And also it's very important for us to include all the elders. They work with the elders that are knowledge keepers, and they have a mentorship program. Also, when they go out on a land, they go with their people to help them or to show them how to do this, because I think these two people that we have right now, they always they grew up on a land. That's a good thing about it. Okay, and yeah, and then we have our land advisor. His name is Jonathan Kichikisik, and he's right now he is the one that is working with them, and he's doing that training and capacity development, getting all these tools in place for them. And right now they're gathering traditional foods. Like food security is also very important right now, because we can't leave the community. Those are the other areas that they're working on. And like, of course, technical skills and traditional skills are very important to include in all of in writing these proposals, like climate change and all this. I think I'm going way beyond what I'm supposed to talk about.
No, that's great, Linda. Yeah, thanks very much. That's a really good like overview of just all the different things that you can do with this funding. And especially I like how you're talking about like the different types of people that are involving people like elders and people with knowledge, with like a lot of land-based knowledge. I was wondering, like, if someone who's part of this, who's here right now on this call, is thinking about applying for the Guardians program, is there any like specific advice that you would give them based on what you've learned?
I think it's very important when you do your proposal, make sure try to include like what kind of support to establish your support systems to get in-kind funding, like and all the supports you need from that. Leadership is very important. Like there's a lot of programs. We have a lot of programs that we can tap into. Doesn't necessarily mean that they give us money, but they include us in all their programming. Like like for a new program, like it's not a new program for us, but like I think you need a strong foundation, and you have to be very proactive, right? And then you have to create. Maybe it's very important that I don't know. We have our own website, TCN website, and then to make sure you have links with other lands of programs. And that's I think the most important thing that you need to do is to include your community, and communication is very important, and give them a lot of support. I think that's very important. To try to give them that self-esteem that they can do it. Like you know what I mean? Like I think that's very important. And to try to seek training programs, given that leeway to they could explore on their own, but maintain safe distance. But most of all the work alongside them, and that's I think that's very important, to work with your elders, also your knowledge keepers. And when you install that pride in them that they can do this on their own, and that they're trying, and get them what they need, get them the tools. Especially, we got our guardians a truck. We got them a boat and motor to go out on a land and to to go and see what they need to do. Set up. That's what you need, but they can't learn everything right away. But maybe if you give them that opportunity, a little time, they will. Of course, they will, right? That's all I think. Encouragement is very important, and make sure you have all your writing, all your plans, all updated, and you have to, with the funders, you have to maintain contact with your funders and have your progress reports in place to make sure that you get your other funding. Like you have to apply for this funding every year, right? From April to March, right?
Yeah.
Am I?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's end of March. Usually that's the end of the project. Yeah.
And also, it's very important also to just to be proactive and to make sure that they see you, that you're trying to do what needs to be done according to your proposal. Yeah. I think that's about all, and I think I'm taking too much of your time here.
No, that's really good. There's a question from the participants on the challenges you had or you faced throughout the application process, before applying and throughout the application process, before these times, before COVID times.
Pardon me? I can't understand you.
So one of the participants asked if what are some of the challenges you had during the time that you were applying for Guardians program before you get the funding?
Oh, when we applied for funding, I think it was just writing it up, like the plan that we had to have a vision, right? In all the proposals that we do, we have to have a vision and a mandate on what we want to do. I think, and to follow that vision, that's the first thing I think we need to do. Because we already wanted to do this, like we found out like about the Guardians program from all the way from like down south. They had these programs for for the last 10 years or something, right? So you need to do a lot of research. And those most of the challenges are, I think, it's getting people to help you, finding contacts, right? You're writing, and especially like in a reserve like mine, it's very hard to, sometimes our internet goes down, and sometimes, you know, it's not very reliable. Like right now, there's a snowstorm. I can't even streamline. Never mind, I don't know how to do it on my own over there at the office, to be truthful. I think that's basically, I don't think we had that many problems. But I think it's very important that you try to get as many people on board, people that you know that really want to work with you. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like one of the participants asked this question. Does anybody have any more questions or comments?
You want to talk, if they want to talk to me in private, they could say, well, you just give them my number and then I can help them.
Okay.
Like you got to pay it forward, right?
Yeah.
I don't have yeah, I can help as much as needed.
Okay. If there is no
That's
question,
good.
yeah, if there is no questions,
Great.
maybe
Great.
we can.
I think I did a good job then if there's no question.
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure. Yeah, okay. Thanks so
And
much.
maybe I just overwhelmed them. I like to talk too much.
No,
Okay.
that was great. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
Okay.
Thanks for being here.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Sorry, Hannah. I think
Bye.
I took over.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So we have about like half an hour. So I'm going to quickly go through application for Guardians program. And if you have any questions so far, you can always have it in the chat section and we share it with Linda or we'll look at it later. So for sure, please do that. So I'm going to share the application and then we start from there. Hopefully I can find it. All right, I guess that's where it is. I have to go to application. All right. Okay, so this is the application for Guardians program. I don't know if all of you have this application. We send that as a package in the beginning of the series. You can also download it from our website. So they have certain instructions, a little bit of instructions at the beginning of the application, which speaks about, you know, how much they fund, how many fundings they have. So $60,000 for 10 projects nationally for First Nations. So they have 3 different categories: Métis, First Nations, and Inuit. And they only have the First Nations open right now, and that's only the tier 1. I think what Linda was talking about is more a multiple year project, because they had tier 2 and 3, which was more for larger projects that multiple year they funded those projects, but the funding has been reached for those. And this one, tier 1, is funding one project from one community or organization for about a year nationally. And then they talk a little bit about, like, they have like 7 sections in this proposals. It's important to fill all the sections, even if you don't have any information to include, it just, you know, put like non-applicable or so. They have a suggestion of word count. So in front of each section, they say, 300 words or 200 words. These are more like suggestions, but also to kind of see or say that based on their experiences, to have kind of like a more efficient interaction, or, passing your information, it has to count within those number of words. So not going too short, not going too long, but going like right to the point. And they also mentioned that each question has 5 scores, and then 5 being a complete answer, and 0 when it's left empty. They mark it when the review process happens. They mark it, reviewers look at your answers, and then mark it within the scale of 0 to 5. And then there's a little bit of explanation of what they do with this information. The ethical aspects of, they're not sharing it with anyone. They usually, if it's collected and not used or not funded, they will remove that information within a year. And then also mentioning that this is the final call for the Indigenous Guardians Pilot Program, and mentioning that this is a very competitive process because they get a lot of applications for limited number of fundings that they do have. And we talk about like some of the small, some of the information that you might find in application forms or guideline that are, kind of like hidden between lines, but that gives you a very critical information about what you're looking for. So here at the end, they say the ultimate goal of the pilot program is to build the business case in support of long-term and increased funding for Indigenous Guardians across Canada. So they're mostly looking at, ideas that are, having the long-term, or projects that having that long-term perspective. And they can actually looking at the guardianship in the longer term as well. So there's an email address for sharing, if you have any questions, but also this is like, I guess, the same address that you can use to submit your application. The deadline is here. Well, the deadline, the time that they mention here is the time that will be responding to your questions up to 3 p.m. on November 30th. They still answer questions. And then the deadline is the midnight of November 30th. And then mentioning what was in the application package. So the guideline, frequently asked questions, budget template, work plan template. We went through budget template and work plan template. And then I tried to put like most of the information from the guideline and questions into like the presentation, but it's always good to go through those and make sure, there might be certain information that is more related to your community and organization that I might have missed. So yeah, so you can always check those out. And I think those information also was emailed to you in the beginning of the series. So section 1 is more about contact, organizational information, address, mailing address, the name of organization. And then starting from section 2, they are looking at more the project itself. So the need and capacity. So in the needs section, they're looking at why do you need guardians? What kind of issues you're trying to address? So what are the areas of concern? We talk about this, that you have to have kind of a connection to your community and organization to know what those concerns are or those issues are that they're trying to address. Such as, is there any species? And if there is, what kind of concern you have? Is that overpopulation? Is that like, the imbalance between different species? Is that, a certain, increase in a certain, type of a species in your area? Any threats that you see to a certain population? Also, about the areas itself, about the, you know, the land, the water, the ice, and different habitats that are within your, you know, within your territory that are concerned to you. And again, you know, what type of concerns do you have? What kind of issues are there? And provide a map of those, you know, areas that are you have concern, and then you know, share it with the guardians. So you have to have access to the map of the area as well. Actually, I didn't see this in the previous guardians. At least a couple of years ago, we applied for one and the map wasn't there. And I feel like this is very important, because everything that you're talking about is about, it's very, it's based on where you are, and, you know, the connection and relationship that you have within the lands and waters and ice. And I believe that not everybody has that perspective and understanding. For sure, you know, everybody doesn't have that. And having the map, you know, gives a more visual, you know, understanding of what is going on and what could be done and what you're trying to address. And then a bit about the program management. So here in the program management part, and they are talking about the objectives. So it's interesting because, as you see, it's a very fluid, you know, proposals in general are very fluid. So, you know, there are some that, you know, have a different section for objectives. They're looking for more general objectives. There are some that are, you know, feeding objectives within other areas. So in here, in Guardians program, they're feeding the objective within the program management. And they are specifically talking about the SMART objectives. So, you know, they expect a little more defined, detailed, and based on those SMART characteristics objectives written here. So just to be aware of. And then what risks, you know, you think you have when you want to start your program or support your program. Again, you know, it's good to be realistic. It's good to, you know, not try to say, you know, there's no risks, or, you know, you feel that there's this support. You have to show that. And the more actually you say, you talk about the risks that you see and why you see those risks, and also the support that you see for the Guardians initiatives, the more shows that you have that relationship within your community and with all the other relationships that you have, you know, land, water, animals. So I think that's why it's important to be realistic and, you know, explain all those and the strategies that you have in mind. Either you plan them or you think that, you know, might come up, you know, the issues that might come up, and then you have some kind of you're aware of those issues and you have a plan to address if those issues come, if those, you know, risks happen, and you can manage those. And then there's a, you know, what is your vision for the future of your Guardians initiative? So here, vision is like goal, you know, it could be very general, and it could be like a couple of sentences that you're talking about the general vision of your or general goal, or general what you see that this Guardians initiative could, you know, do, and what kind of impact that can make in your community or organization. And then it goes to the measurement, you know, so again, this is about part of the SMART objectives. How do you measure the success? You know, is there numbers that going to change? Is it like a result of a survey? Is it like, you know, if you're looking at the quality of water, you know, you're looking at that being improved. If you're looking at, you know, addressing certain concerns around the population of, you know, caribou, for example, like, so what is, you know, or moose, you know, what is your, you know, how do you measure, you know, any kind of success that you had? And if you want to increase, you know, their population, did that happen? So, or if you want to monitor it, how do you want to monitor it? So, and then how do you communicate those challenges and successes of your Guardians initiative? We talked about all this before, so it's kind of like more putting this into perspective that, you know, the communication that you have shows your capacity So how do you communicate that with your community members, within your organization? It could be outside your organization or community. You know, how do you share those information? How do you share that success? How do you share that challenges? Next part, it talks about the capacity. So did you, you know, have you done projects like this before? So do you have, you know, have you taken care of the lands, water, plants, animals in the past? And what kind of activities you have done that, you know, may support or be part of this Guardians initiative in the past, like before even, you know, getting this funding, what have you have in place? So just remember that this shouldn't be a formal, you know, kind of plan, because they are looking for communities that have certain plans in place to protect their lands, waters, ice, but they're also looking for the ones that have kind of an informal one. So this funding is supposed to help you to have a formal plan and have like a more structured plan of taking care of, you know, your lands, waters, ice. So, and also, you know, do you have like a capacity building plan? Are you going to have, you know, educate a group of people, train group of people? Are you going to bring, you know, a knowledge holders with you together, going to bring like technical Western more knowledge with, you know, indigenous knowledge, and kind of have all that in one place and kind of have an overview of those. So I feel like, you know, this having ABC in each section gives you a clarity of what they're looking for. And usually you find those in pretty much every funding. So they kind of like break down every section with questions to clarify what you're looking for. And when you're looking at those, you know, it's also good to look at, you know, the guideline at the same time. So when I was presenting the, you know, PowerPoint, I got all those information from the guideline, and then they, you know, pretty much break down each section. So in capacity, what they're looking for, in governance, what they're looking for. So I can't just summarize those, but, you know, you can see all those information in the guideline, and you can parallel to filling up each section, you know, also look at the guideline and see, okay, did I cover everything that's mentioned there? And then they talk about the governance. So this part is like, you know, what is the governance structure in your community or organization? What kind of, you know, expression of authority you have there? Is there constitution? Are there laws in place? Do you have a membership, you know, or policies around certain, you know, issues, specifically in this case, you know, related to land? And water and animals and plants. And then what is your map of the lands that, you know, is your community is located? And, you know, others, if there's anything else other than these expressions, you can always add there. Please provide, okay, so now what is your governance structure? So I believe if you are from you know, from a community and you're connected to chief and council, you can definitely discuss, you know, what type of a structure is there. And then also how usually you engage with knowledge holders, elders, and also youth in your community, how that, you know, how that relationship is going, how do youth engage with the community, how do knowledge holders, and how these two groups can actually work together and engage with each other. And what are their roles, especially when you're looking at knowledge holder in community? Are they having like a strong role within the community? And specifically when you're looking at guardians and guardianship of your lands. And then section 4 is about cultural inclusion. So you're talking about, you know, bringing your own, you know, culture, your nation's culture, when you're talking about the responsibilities to the land and caring for the land, and kind of explain that, as well as like the language. So is there any aspect of your project that talks about revitalization of, language? Are you gonna bring back some part of the language? And you also, it could be even training, youth while going on the land, speaking from, speaking about like what, language has been used, what words has been used for, different parts of the territory. So do you have that in place, or are you thinking about having that also in your project? Section 5 is more looking at community support and engagement. So it's kind of talking about how either like there were like members of community, how they've been like, showing support for the Guardians Initiative, and is the leadership supporting your Guardians Initiative. So again, this talks about the support letters, BCR letters. So the more you have that, connection and support and can show it through the support letters, the stronger your application is. And then also how you are going to engage community members, different parts of your community, and either in like developing your program, developing your plans and policies, or, undertaking it, what are the roles that they play and what kind of activities that they're going to do for, the Guardians program. And then, partnership, again, like what partners you have here in this table. So select all that apply. If none are applicable, please select none of the above. So, here they have different ones. So actual financial partner, anticipated financial partner, and then actual in-kind partner and anticipated in-kind partner. So we talked about this when we were going over the budget. So actual ones is the ones that you already have the funding. Anticipated ones is the ones that you've applied or you reached to, and you're trying to get funding from. Usually there is like, again, like a maximum of funding that you've applied for that is going to your budget. But here you show who they are. And also in-kind ones, is there like an in-kind, actual in-kind, like people or, resources that you have and they agreed already that they will be part of the in-kind contribution, or the ones that you are in negotiation with to have them as in-kind partners. So they listed different ones: federal, provincial, local governments, private sector, other indigenous groups and foundation, non-governmental, academic, and then none of the above. So if you don't have any partners, you can always mention here, and you have to. So they say don't ever leave anywhere empty. So you have to fill every section. And then if there's other, you have to explain what type of other supports you have. And then budget and work plan. I believe that we went through the budget and work plan. I know usually budget and work plan kind of looks easier than what it really is when it comes to action, when it comes to writing it and filling it up. There are like a lot of things that you have to consider at the same time. So what kind of activities are happening? What is the maximum that money that you have? What other monies you have from other partners? And when you're filling the budget or work plan in terms of timing or the length of time that you need for those, you have to have all those kind of in mind. For me, I usually can kind of like, after writing many proposals, I can kind of have it in mind when I'm writing or filling up the budget and work plan. Occasionally I have to go back and look at certain activities, make sure I put them right, and if they're eligible. But I think maybe start with having those written down, like activities, having your SMART objectives, the length of time that you have or you've imagined, and then as you fill those, just consider all those little things that shows you have, what you're doing and what this project is all about. So, and then additional information, which is, if you couldn't answer to the question, or if there is any kind of comment or any other unique elements you want to include here, you can always do that. And then there is the deadline, which is November 30th, 2020, midnight Pacific time. What is going to be included in your application package, and a contact information that you can actually ask your questions. So that is different parts of the proposal. I have some questions now. Just gonna make sure. So Irene asked, what capacity does Guardian cover? Can Guardian cover cultural revitalization? Okay, and you said that, find the answer. Well, they don't cover anything. What they do is like, they want you to cover those things. They want to show that, they want you to show that you can actually do that within this program. And, even if you can show them that you've done this in the past within your community or organization. So Darlene asked, what do you mean by risks, such as? Well, I can give you some examples. I have to think actually about it a little bit, but risks is like, a potential, threats to your project, like potential risk that's existing for your project. For example, like, you want to see what is a certain population, in, let's say you're looking at, moose population within your territory, and you want to make sure that you have, you can monitor that. But then, there are certain risks, for example, seasonal differences that, within the timeline that you have, you can't find the animal within that, or you can't really monitor them within this certain time that you have, because it extends to a different season. Could be lots of different things, but what risks are is what might make your project either delay or not being able to reach the goal that you have or objective that you have for that certain activity. So it's very unique to your own project. For example, the previous one that we wrote for Guardians, if I can think of more examples, we were thinking about like having, boats going on the river and talk about like, or, having youth and knowledge holders together and look at the areas that, have, a meaning, cultural meaning within the river. And the stories around those areas. So one of the risks of that is, the weather. They might not really collaborate with you during those times that you want to go on the river, having youth with you, and the risk of not being able to actually go within that timetable. For many, one of the risks was like the weather, but the other ones could be other, the fact that you need safety training for, if you're taking people on the river, so that has to be provided, and the risk that associated with taking people on the river and community members. So those are some examples that just comes to mind right now, but I can look at other ones, Darlene, and we can always continue this conversation later. Okay, and Emily asked some questions. Okay, is there any other questions? Darlene, yeah. So it was a good answer. You got your answer. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, so in the afternoon, Asfia will be, facilitating the afternoon session. She will be covering non-governmental applications, including the Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund. And I think she has a couple of others in mind. And she's also going to share the success story that they recently had with Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund. They just received the funding, I think, a couple of weeks ago.
So good afternoon, everyone. Before I start the afternoon session today, I would like to do my land acknowledgement. I am here in Winnipeg, standing on the land of Treaty 1 territory, which is the ancestral land of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. I would like to acknowledge that the water that we use in Winnipeg is sourced from Shoal Lake First Nation. I would also like to acknowledge two of my mentors from Opipona Cree Nation, Northern Manitoba, Elder Vivian Moose and late Elder Annie Spence. Before I share a little bit more about myself, I was wondering if you would like to do your land acknowledgement in the chat box, and also you can introduce yourself by saying your name and the name of your organization. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see my presentation. So my name is Asfia Kamal, and I'm a mother of a 16-month-old baby boy who keeps me on my toes. I'm a sister and a daughter. I have completed my graduate studies from the University of Manitoba. I'm currently holding a research position with University of Manitoba. And throughout my graduate program and after that, my main interest has been community program and land-based food harvesting activities in northern Manitoba involving hunting, fishing, gardening, medicine picking, including training and capacity building of the youth, creating educational resources for the school and the community, and something related to that as well. And very recently, I've also worked on some of the health-related projects. During my graduate program, I have worked with a number of First Nation communities in northern Manitoba, but particularly I have worked with Opipona Cree Nation for 11 years. And it was my great opportunity to work with them to build their community-based food program. So I work with them as a team, and they now have a food program called the Idintumitswin program. I've also worked with a non-governmental organization for the past 2 years, and with them very closely, I have worked with a team of people to help communities get funding from government and non-governmental sources. So I guess I come here on board today from this capacity, but I must assure that my expertise is nothing compared to your experience and expertise that you bring today in the discussion. So I am going to talk to you all about proposal writing, in particular the Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund, a funding program that you have heard about several times from Maya in past few sessions. I have applied for Indigenous Peoples Resilience funding recently, and we have successfully received a good amount of money from them. So I will do my best to share my point of view of how to get a successful funding on this application. So I just want to share with you pictures of two of my elders, my mentors, Elder Annie Spence on the left and Elder Vivian Moose on the right. While you look at their pictures and the beautiful background, I wanted to mention that today I want you to do a lot of networking and also include your suggestions and add wherever needed. Please share your stories throughout the session. I'm going to start sharing some of my experience in proposal writing by sharing some of the scenarios. Applying for funding is not easy. For me, sometimes it's really, really frustrating. So let's take a look at the scenarios here. So scenario 1. This is how I look like sometimes when I apply for funding. The technology of funding, when we are applying for funding, sometimes it's so frustrating because the way the application form is designed is not easy to complete it. Sometimes for me, it happened like even if you successfully completed the application, you're unable to print it because it needs a particular size of paper and your printer cannot accommodate that size of paper. Maybe sometimes the software that you need, and then you don't have fast enough internet to download that software. So there are a lot of frustration related to the technology aspects of funding. I would say more so towards government funding than non-government funding. Scenarios are changing, but still in some cases we have recently faced technological challenges. So that's one. Secondly, the conditions of funding. Whenever we are trying to apply for funding, we are given some conditions that are sometimes impossible to fulfill. For example, as you can see in this cartoon, they're saying that before they give us the funding, they want to see a 3-year blind study, peer-reviewed and carried out by a recognized academic authority, resulting in an impact statement, justify our assertion that housing homeless people is, generally speaking, a good idea. So the whole sentence is so complicated, it scares you. So that's another scary part for me of proposal writing. I am by no means trying to scare you, but my point of view is let's take our frustration out at the very beginning. So when we dig into the proposal, we are comfortable and happy. Number 3 is underfunding. This is, I would say, less a scenario and more, what can I say, a situation for Indigenous projects. Even in the last session, I was hearing that participants were saying that, oh, we are not getting funding enough in this area and that area. I myself have experienced similar situations. For the longest time, there were very limited funding for hunting equipment, land-based activities. Even if we get some funding, they were not giving a full funding, lots of restrictions. You can spend your money on salary, but not in gas. You're not getting reimbursement on hunting equipment. But then there are money for gardening. So a lot of complications, a lot of things that we had to keep in mind while applying for funding for community-based project. And I would say still, even though we are getting some funding, the situation is completely not gone. It's not resolved. So at this point, I was hoping if some of you could share your story and your difficulties. What are the challenges in general you face while you apply for any kind of funding? Just a little bit of experience sharing. Anybody?
Hi,
Hi.
Irene. I'm calling from Winnipeg. I'm from North House Cree Nation, but I'm a post-secondary school counselor.
Okay.
I provide support and advocacy to North House Cree Nation students attending school in Winnipeg, Brandon, and Nepal. One of the things that I want to embark on is setting up a bus pass system for students attending college in Winnipeg. My challenge is finding the funding specifically for that.
I think what we can do is one sector definitely can be if you see any funding related to education, you have to strategize your application that way. That's something that I know that we can do. Also, people who are coming to study to the city, if they kind of say that we're going there for some kind of training, so sometimes capacity building training funding available, they provide support towards these kinds of initiatives. Transportation cost, you can also try collaborating with the universities, academic institutions, and when they're coming to study, you know, if they do some work collaboratively while completing their studies and visit, university research programs, professors, they have funding for people's transportation, and they can help you in that way as well. So these are some of my tips. So I think one of the thing is, like, yes, funding is not available in every sector, but what we have to do is just kind of tweak the idea around and find a way to apply for funding. You have to convince your funder that, okay, I want to, like, my issue is very closely tied with what you're asking for. So that's just the main idea of tweaking. Does that answer your question? Anyone else has any other?
Are you
question?
you able to send me some of those suggestions to share them in the chat?
Yeah, sure. Or if you send me your email, I can do that too. We can be in touch, and if I find something even directly related, I will be happy to. Or the research team will be happy to provide you some information.
I can also comment, Irene, if you're, we have these one-on-one sessions that actually work with you individually for about 90 minutes to find the funding for your, need, and then figure out if there is funding out there and where is what will be the strategy to proceed to find. You're looking more for like a transportation, so there is different areas, as Asfia said, but working one-on-one specifically with you, I think, will be the best answer. So you can either share your email, or we share our emails at the end, so you can also connect to us, and then if you want to even work with other, you want to specifically work with Indigenous individual, you can also choose that. So then specifically looking after what your needs are, what kind of funding you're looking for. Sorry, Asfia, for jumping in.
No, absolutely, you're welcome. That's why we're here for. Anyone has any stories about banging your head on the computer while applying for funding? If not, we're going to proceed to our next section, which is the application itself. So I'm going to start sharing my screen again. Okay, so can everybody hear me now? Okay. So Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund, this is how the website looks. Just very briefly, this fund is led and governed by Indigenous people. They have a very esteemed Indigenous Advisory Council, and it started in June 2020, and in the response of the pandemic. so far, they have supported more than 50 Indigenous-led groups, and they're still taking applications. The deadline for them, actually, they don't have any deadline, but you can apply right now. But I think they have a deadline for spending the amount. So the amount is specifically from 5,000 to 30,000. And some of the organization, as you can see, donated fund to create this application and to resource as Donor Canadian Foundation, Edmonton Community Foundation, Frontline Fund, etc., etc. So you can look through all this as you look at the main page of the funding application. But the good thing about Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund is it has adopted a very innovative funding approach, including receiving application by phone and video. It has worked to broaden the accessibility of smaller and grassroots organizations, including non-qualified donee. So as Maya has described before, it's comparatively an easy application fund, and certainly you will not have that much frustration while applying for this funding, that I can assure. Okay, now let's take a look at the funding itself. Application. I have one application that I have brought for you, and I have actually deleted some of the key information. It is the successful application that I had for one of the communities in northern Manitoba. So who are eligible? What are the eligible projects? You can see there, like this was an operating funds to ensure ongoing programs of sustainability of Indigenous-led organizations, community group, First Nation, Métis, and Inuit communities, providing local support. You can apply funding program for training and financial support to areas where gaps in funding are needed to strengthen emergency healthcare. You can apply funding for food and strengthen local food systems, training and infrastructure, employment, internship, experiential learning, and so all these. Okay, access to counseling, mental health is something that's there. I think somebody mentioned mental health in our last session. So innovative techniques, support for elders, request for funding to fulfill gap where a shortage of funding is for a specific program has been received from another foundation or organization. So it's pretty broad when it comes to applying for funding. Just keep in mind that it's related to COVID. So here I have given some messages applied for on behalf of Opipunapin Cree Nation. It could be a Cree Nation, a community, a band council. It could be a school, a health complex, any organization, any community group, youth club. So sky's the limit when it comes to apply for the group and organization. Name of the contact, kind of writing the application, consulting the whole program, responding to the questions. Yes.
I think you're cutting out.
Yes.
I couldn't hear you for a part, and
Hello.
I just saw a comment that you're not very clear.
Okay.
So can you repeat some of like from Starting from
Okay.
you're cutting out. Maybe stop your video. Maybe that helps.
Okay. Shall I start from the beginning? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's a little better. I don't know if everybody else here.
Okay. Just a second. Is it clear now? Okay. We start from the very beginning of the application, contact information, number 1.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you have any question, we can review it before. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay. So name of the organization, number 1, it could be, I wrote the name of a First Nation community because that could be one example that if your program is related to community school, it could be the name of a school, it could be a name of a health complex, any youth club, gardening program, community programs, kitchen program, anything that you're working on. It could be a program on women's counseling, women empowerment. So just write down the name of the organization or name of the group. So that's what it is. Name of the contact person and the role. So one person who is going to be leading this program, your funding, and the designation of that person. That's going to be another thing. For address, it's pretty easy, address of the organization. Make sure you give a phone number and fax, both. For email, make sure you give more than one email. In the contact person too, I think if you want, you can have 2 person in charge. Up to you. It's always better to be safe. So that's how I worked. Where will your project take place? So that part is something that you can write like this. I have written Opiponapian Cree Nation. It's a Swampy Cree territory, northern Manitoba. So write down, your project location, the name of the community, and it's pretty clear. It's written there. So that's easy. Number 3 is the most important part of your application. So I would like you to listen carefully. And also, if you want, you can take note. So please describe the challenge that COVID-19 has brought to your community and your response. So here, even though it is just asking you for COVID-19, my suggestion will be that you start by sharing a little bit about your community. So wherever your community is or the project will be located, the geography of the community. So if it is, say, for example, I would say Opiponapian Cree Nation in northern Manitoba, whether your community is remote or not, what kind of road access do you have? What is the population size? So these are few sentences that you have to write. And then number 2 in section 3 should be in a very simple language. You can say some of the key challenges in your community. You can say something related to, because we are remote, we have health issues or food security or mental health issue, or a community that is impacted by hydroflooding. It could be some challenges in relation to lack of educational resources. So whatever it is, just mention it that, because of this, we have been facing these challenges, or maybe one challenge, whichever you choose to write. So that's number 2 of section 3. Number 3 is, here you're going to talk about the COVID situation. Okay, how the community is dealing with COVID. People's mental state. Do you have any positive cases in the community? If yes or not, like what kind of steps the community has been taking to help the situation? Is there any community organization you're collaborating with? It could be like, hey, we are a youth group. We are collaborating with the health complex and the school to do ABC activities in the community. So that's kind of an example of how you're going to write about the COVID situation in your community. And then number 4 is another thing that I would highly encourage is to highlight some cultural activities that you're doing to fight this pandemic situation. For example, are people using traditional medicines? Are there any land-based activities happening? If so, how? So these are some of the things that you know better than me. So you can write according to your project outline and need. So that would be number 4, I guess. If you have any question, please jump in anytime. I'm not very techno savvy, so it's very easy for me to miss the chat question. So I would prefer if you talk and just let me know. Okay. So then after you elaborated on the COVID situation and the land-based activities you're doing in the community, you have to mention about the safety measures that you're taking while doing these activities. So if you're taking, say, for example, we are doing some land-based activities, so there might be questions around how are you handling the social distancing part? Or do you have enough hand sanitizer? So that's something that you have to mention. You can also mention other measures this community have been taking. For example, ever since COVID breakout started, we have a travel ban that was started by the community leaders, or we're doing ABC activities to keep our community elders safe, or we're doing these activities to help out our elders. So that's another thing that you have to add in the section of COVID situation in the community. After you say that, in this number 3, now you have to say the key points, the response that we want to help with now. So here you're going to talk about in very simple language why you need the fund. So because you have had, this is our community, this is how we have been, this is our COVID situation, and this is where the gap is, and this is where we need the funding. For example, if it's around food, you can just say that we didn't have enough food in the community because of the travel ban and et cetera, or whichever challenge you choose to share. And while you state this, after that, you have to say that what is the total budget of your program. So Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund is providing up to 30,000. So you can say like the total budget of our program is 30,000. Here you have to mention whether you have any other support, financial or in-kind support from any other organization. So if it's say you're getting, someone is trying to say something.
Yeah,
Yes.
Asfi, sorry, I think your screen is not shared.
I
don't know why. Like we only see the first page, which is application information, right? You're going now through the budget and the next pages.
No. I'm still in the
number 3.
Section I'm still in number 3. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
It sounds really funny, but this description part, when you write, it expands.
Right.
And this part is pretty big, or maybe the only big part of the whole application. The rest of the application is like tick marks. So that's all you have to
Okay.
do carefully, I guess.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. So if anybody has any question, since I paused, you're good? Somebody has any comment? Okay, key points. Okay, we'll do that. So I was like talking about your challenges, why you're applying for the funding, and then where you have to state here the amount of funding that you'll need. And if you have any other support, for example, you say the total budget of our program is 30,000, but we're getting 5,000 from the school. And so we need 25,000, so something like that you can add. And I would recommend that you have some of the amount, whether in kind or cash, as support. For some reason, funders really like that. And when you say that we have other support, it actually shows the strength of your idea, your vision. So that is, from my experience, is key for a successful funding application.
Asfia, can you type this in? I think that's what Irene is looking for. So as you're saying it, you can just type it there so they have the key points.
Sure. Let's do that.
Thanks.
No problem. Okay, so let's go for geographical. Can you hear, see?
Yeah.
So here, a little bit about community. I'm just gonna go back. I'm not able to get rid of the gaps here, but we'll do our best. Here, so where, how remote, does this help? Road access, what kind of road access, population size, so this is something that you can, so that's number one. Number two, in simple language, what are your key challenges in the community? Example, food, health, it could be flooding. So anything related to this, or you know what is the challenge in your community. Okay, and then here, number three, you're gonna write about the COVID situation in the community. So you have to write how people are handling it. Do you have positive cases? I can't see what I'm writing, so I gotta move my, okay, good. Steps that you are taking to help the situation. And then, is there any community organizations you are collaborating? Example, school, health complex. It could be another community program. Okay, so that's number three. Why it is not going down? Number four. Okay, I have another option. Let's do that. Here, number four. Is there any cultural activities um, happening so here you can talk about use of medicinal plants, any other plant-based activities. Okay. And then number 5 would be the safety measures. Okay, so example, using hand sanitizer, PPE, etc. And then other measures such as travel ban or activities to keep elders safe. Okay. That's that. And what else? And then you go to the next section. Okay, now here you're going to write about why you need the money. How much do you need? Do you have any support funding? And then if so, how much? You can talk about how you will be spending the amount. Let's thing. And then the next thing you have to write here is what will you be for example, if you have a moose hunting project, how much meat will you get and how are you going to spend it? How are you going to share it? I think that's something that you're going to write, that what are you getting out of this? It's kind of amount wise. So that's one aspect of the benefit of the project. So it's like what resources? Share the amount specific. Okay, so that's that. And then the last thing you're going to write in the description section is, okay, here's going to be number 6, number 7, Number 8, will be benefited. So elders, youth, single parents. So these are just some examples. And how they will be benefited. So that's section 3. So I'm going to go back to my previous application, which has some information written. Oops. Okay, that's good. Here, I don't know what I have done, sorry. I'm just going to take a little time to figure it out. I'll stop sharing the screen and come back again. Apologies for the technical constraint. There, we are back. Yes, I'm sorry about the delay. I was just being challenged by my technology here. As you have seen in the cartoon, that's how I feel frustrated. Okay, so number 3. Anybody has any question on the description section? I have kind of written everything pretty elaborately. I can copy paste all of the points for you in the chat box. Would that be good? So after that, shall I move on and Maya to the next section?
I guess there's no question, so for sure.
Okay. So after section 3, then section 4 is what type of group are you? I have written here Indigenous community that is not a qualified donee. So for Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund, it is pretty kind of broad. It could be a grassroots organization, youth council. As you see, the options are kind of really open. So you can be a qualified donee, you can be just a program, doesn't matter. Just tick mark wherever your organization or your project suits. If you have question, you can always give them a call. So that's section 4. Section 5, is your group or organization Indigenous led? So I have written assuming that, well, most of the projects will be Indigenous led. Mine was Indigenous led. So this is what I have written. Yes, we are 100% led by our people and our traditions. If any of the organization are not Indigenous led, you have to kind of write few lines here, kind of sharing your ideas about that. Well, we are not Indigenous led, but we have been working closely with Indigenous communities, and just let them know how closely you're working and how effectively you're working. So I think because one of the conditions is that you have to work on Indigenous projects. So that's section 5. I'm just seeing. Okay. So we're going to section 6. Here too, pretty simple. Do you have a charitable number or partnering with someone who's a qualified donee? It's depending on like how you're kind of writing the application, who you're collaborating with, where it's going to be yes or no. For us, it was a First Nation community reserve community in northern Manitoba. So yes, we tick marked as no. So that's that. Whether your community is currently experiencing a COVID outbreak. If you have positive cases, say yes. If you don't, then say no. Is this an urgent social, economic, or medical need? So based on your situation, answer that. Do you have any current partners or have been supported by any other funders? It's good to mention a partner. That's just my recommendation. Again, so if you have a partner that you're working with, whether you're working with the university, partnering with a university, or you're working with a community organization or another non-government organization, mention them. If it is your first time starting a project, you can just say that we have some supporters who are providing us some in-kind support, but we're looking forward to work with more organization in future. That is fine too. But just show that you have interest of collaboration and you have some people who are interested to take part in your program. If you don't have financial support ready to contribute in your program, you can talk about the in-kind support that will help your program. So here they have a very simple definition of what is a qualified donee. It's an organization that can issue official donation receipts for gifts if received from individual or corporations. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about this challenge or your response? So here, always take this opportunity to say something like this, like we appreciate this fund and how it will help the community, like ours to reclaim our tradition. It could be anything in your own simple language, just kind of something to share with them that this funding is greatly appreciated and it's going to be benefiting the community and the certain group of the communities in a number of different ways. Okay, here, please provide the start and the end date. One of the key things of Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund is it's meant for a short period of time. So now, I don't know if they will be changing their mandate, but so far I know that even if you're applying for now, the amount you're getting, you will have to be spending it by December 31st of this year. So for example, today is what, 9th? If you complete the application and submit it by 15th, you say that our project timeline is November 15th to December 31st. So I guess there might be opportunities of repurposing. For example, this is something that we should discuss, yes. If you originally write the proposal for a hunting project and then you ended up doing a canning project or a community kitchen project, I guess you have to mention that something around your main idea. So you have the opportunity to kind of change some of the action plans based on the community situation. As long as you keep them informed, it should be fine. So we have come to the budget section. So far, if anybody has any question, they can ask. If not, we will move to the budget section. Any question? Yes, no? That's good. It's a pretty simple one, so. Okay, I have written a very simple budget and they don't expect you to write more than this. So for example, you have 3 different sections here. I have written like 10,000 for support for hunter and fisher, 10,000 for transportation, and 10,000 for food for hunters and support for staff salary, etc. Here you just write down, the timeline. You give a little bit of detail in the description box. Nothing like too detailed. You don't have to go too much detail. You can just write salaries for 21 hunters. Again, here too, support for transportation, cost of fuel, floatplane. I just made it up. So If yours is about food, you can write about food. If yours is about something else, just what are the expenses. But just make sure to write things in simple words, and that should do it. Okay, so that's the budget section. Anybody has any question around budget?
There was
No?
one question Michelle asked
Okay.
that does the funder need to be notified if the action plan is changed?
It is good to notify them, but depending on how drastically it's been changing. For example, if it is broadly related to food security project, the money stays in the food security activities uh, in the community, and that is fine. But if it is related to food security and you're spending it for something drastically different, for example, for an education project, so that actually changes the vision of the project from the original plan, right? So in that way, you have to really consult them. I personally don't think that it should be an issue as long as you talk to them. So um, it is possible to repurpose. In fact, I have been facing some similar issues, and one of the communities who just recently applied, and I'm hoping, my fingers crossed, that they're going to get it. But right after they applied, you know how situation changes drastically in Indigenous communities due to a number of infrastructural challenges. So even though they initially thought their project will be on fishery, now they're changing into something um, different. So yeah, I guess at this point, we are going to, if you don't have any question, we are going to take a break, or after the break, we can come back and discuss some of your questions if you have any. If not, we're going to go to the next segment, and yeah, go from there. Does it sound good, Maya?
For sure. So we will be back in like 5 to 10 minutes or
Yeah,
8
sure.
minutes maybe. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
There's a question about if a sole business owner, an indigenous consultant,
Uh-huh.
can actually apply for this type of funding.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Because I'm not too sure about the eligibility. Like, are they individual entrepreneurs or are eligible?
I mean, I think here, because they have said like both charitable, non-charitable, grassroots, community program, people's program, anything is eligible as long as you meet the key criteria. So one is it's related to indigenous service, um, indigenous base, indigenous interest based project. Secondly, it has a short timeline, not like 2 year, 3 year plan. Even though I hear that they might, if after this year successful, they might be able to go for the second phase, but like I'm not the one to answer those. But anyway, so short term, and of course, it has some kind of COVID relation project, right? So if it is related to helping COVID situation in the community, so these are the three criteria. If that matches, I think anybody can apply.
Okay.
That's just my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so we're gonna share screen, and now we're gonna, so far we have discussed the proposal. If you want, we can again go back and do some quick overview. If anybody has any question, please jump in. If not, we're gonna discuss some frequently asked question from the application guideline. All right, so certain situation that we face, I have explained them in the very beginning of our project. As you know, communities may not have reliable internet connection. So how are you going to email your application? So in those cases, questions might be around like, can I handwrite and fax my application? Yes, you can. So this is like the frequently asked question in Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund application page. So here you go, and then here it's written, then what am I going to do if I don't have internet connection? So these are the email. You can either send your completed application by email. If you don't have that, you can mail them to this address. You can fax them to this address. But what is more interesting is if you're not comfortable with written communication, you can feel free to send a 3-minute video, share your video by YouTube, and you can always give them a call if you have questions around that. So there are a number of different methods. You can use any one of them. Second question is, whether you can consult somebody before you apply. I would highly recommend, yes, you should. After you have a draft application ready, you can always consult somebody. I think actually it helps you kind of fine tune your proposal. So if you have missed something, if you, after talking to them, you find out that, okay, this is probably going to be more of their interest. So it's really helpful if you call them once you have a draft proposal ready. And of course, if you have question, you can call them anytime. Do I need a charitable tax number? I guess that's the easiest part. No. So any organization, any community group, registered charities, registered not-for-profit organization, public boards performing a function of government in Canada, all can apply. So because it's a crisis situation, they have made it pretty easy. Now, when will we find out if we're approved? Here, the question is, they take at least 2 to 3 weeks to review your question, your application, and they'll get back to you. They actually respond to you pretty quickly. So it's something very positive about applying in this segment. What kind of projects are eligible? Okay, I just spoke about it. Clearly, a project that addresses a pressing social inclusion or well-being related to COVID-19, a project that serves Indigenous people, which means First Nation, Métis, and Inuit, and preferably led by Indigenous people, and be carried out in short time frame with a reasonable budget. So before June 30, 2021. Now they have kind of extended it. I can see it. So it's probably not by December 31st then. So there you go. You have more time to spend your money. Okay. Anybody has any question? Did I miss anything? Please prompt me, Maya, if I have. And then eligible expenses. So under eligible expenses, again, like this is also pretty broad. You can use your money, the fund, for elders honorarium, wages and employment related to cost for existing and additional staff, fees for professional services. If you are hiring somebody to do something for some kind of a training, so this is where you can use the fees for professional services. Disability support for staff or recipients. So if you can, you know what it is. Materials and supplies. It could be related to, educational materials from books. It could be any safety materials. My understanding is it's very easily hand sanitizer, PPE, anything that you need to keep the community safe or keep doing your community activities safely. Printing and communication. So for example, if you're doing some kind of a campaign that's related to community activities, you can use the printing cost, travel cost, including mileage. So if you're traveling from one place to another, inter-community for the project, so that's being covered. Utilities, if your program is located in a particular residence or an office, so maybe the utility bills can be covered. If you're paying for any insurance, that can be covered. Rental of premises, if you're renting a place, a room or something, an office space, that will be covered. Lease, purchase, maintenance of equipment, performance monitoring and reporting costs, data collection. So if you're doing some kind of a research, so the data collection fee, if you're buying any kind of software, I think all those will be kind of eligible. Knowledge development activities. So that means, for example, if you're doing some kind of an intergenerational land-based activity somewhere in the camp, so elders honorarium to expenses related to food and gas and everything. And if you're producing any educational material or anything related to that event, whether it's a poster or a calendar or anything, all those will be covered. How are decisions made? Applications will be reviewed by all Indigenous Adjunction Committee using the common criteria. So, using a sliding point scale of 1 to 5. And what are the reporting requirements? I think this is something that I have actually discussed with you earlier. It's pretty easy. You can do the reporting by phone. So as you have, you can see here, should your application be accepted, and the following are the reporting requirements. Honoring our oral tradition, we invite you to answer the questions through a video or phone call, or share a video maximum 3 to 5 minutes. You can email here to schedule a time. So when you get the funding, at some point you have to report them back about, how your activities are going in the community. So then you can schedule a phone interview and talk to them and let them know how things are going. If you prefer to write, that is also possible, but they are not expecting you to write a long report, a big something. They're just asking you to write maximum of 400 words per question. So the questions are also pretty simple. How did you use the support that was provided, and were you able to implement the response within the budget? Did you have any difficulty in implementing? How has the support provided made a difference in your community? Please share your success, challenges, and learning. If you have a partner or another funder, how did you use their support in response? And provide us with any feedback on how we can improve this facility. So these are pretty simple questions. I think part of it you have already kind of committed when you're writing the application, specifically in the description section. So, your description section will help you answer all these questions very easily. Am I going too fast? Everything's fine. Everybody is following. No questions so far. Okay, cool. I guess that's about it for Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund. I just have one more information to share with you. I just heard yesterday, or I got this information yesterday, that there will be a special panel discussion with the leaders of Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund recipients in the context of the National Day of Philanthropy Activities. So this event is going to be on November 17th. I will make sure that our research program shares this event in their Facebook page so you can follow. This is another great place where you can ask questions to people. So here in this event, you will be able to directly contact with people from Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund. There will be recipients, those who got the funding. There will be staff, there will be funder, some of the advisory group. So, and they will talk about what they have learned and challenges and everything. So if you have already started working with your proposal, or you in the next 1 week, you have the opportunity to kind of talk to them directly if you have questions. So that's just the last bit of information around Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund. Again, I'm going to pause here and ask if you have any question.
Asvia, can you turn off your
If
camera?
not,
Can
how
you
are
turn
we
off?
doing time-wise, Maya? I have.
Can you hear me, Asvia? Can you turn off your? Can you turn off your video?
I can.
It was hard to hear you at the end. So, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah.
Can everybody? Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Can you explain just a little bit more about like the last part you said? You said that this.
Okay, where what was missing? Where
this
should I start?
This event will be like bring all the staff and.
Okay, so
can't hear you.
Yes. So Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund. Stop sharing. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah. Now you're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stop sharing. This is I can just talk about it. So the group who actually launched the Indigenous People Resilience Fund, they are organizing an event. It's kind of a panel discussion. It's going to be online. That's my understanding. They are calling this event on November the 17th. I will make arrangement to post this event via our research group. So all those who have participated today, they will be able to access and register for this event. You have to register for this event. So this is another chance for you to kind of directly connect with the staff, those who have received the funding already, to advisory council and everybody. So that's just the information.
Is there a cost, Aspia? Do you think it's free?
It's free. It's free. There isn't any cost related to it.
Okay.
Okay.
Just to comment that most of these info sessions are free. So a lot of funders, they actually have these kind of events. There was one for Indigenous Guardians that was, I think, last week, which they sit with you and you can share whatever questions you have. And that's part of the services that they provide. So they're all entirely free.
Yes, and very simple registration process. So make sure you register. Don't forget to register. That's one thing you have to do. Other than that, you're welcome to join, and they're expecting many people to join. And I think your feedback is important, and let them know that, how this funding is actually contributing to hope in communities, and they might extend it. They might have more funding for us. So I would highly encourage that you participate in that one too. Okay. So far, if you all do not have any question in regards to Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund, then I can talk about a few other things, and then maybe we can open the floor for discussion. It sounds good, Maya?
I don't see any questions. So
yeah. Okay. All right. So very, very quickly, again, I'm gonna start sharing my screen and fingers crossed that it's not going to give us any other trouble. Okay, so since I have this opportunity to share with you a little bit about funding coming from non-governmental sources, this is another funding source that I know they have their call ongoing. So I thought I can share this with you. There. Can you see? Yes? No?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So Northern Manitoba Food, Culture and Community Collaborative, this is a non-governmental organization. They have their call for inquiry on, and you have to apply for funding by November the 20th. So the deadline is coming, but you still have time. The way they work, it's first of all, it's meant for only Manitoba. So that's just one limitation. But the way this whole application work is they would ask you to give them a call with your project idea, connect with them, and let them know that how you're planning to vision your program. So once that's done, they will send you an application form that is pretty simple. I think I would say simpler than Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund, like 1 or 2 questions, very simple application form, very simple budget outline. And so you can just talk to them and ask them about anything, anytime. These are some of the key things that they actually focus on. So they have been running this program, I think, ever since 2014. It's even though they have many programs based on food, but very recently they have also supported programs related to culture too. So cultural activities, whether it's beading, any other arts and crafts, and in the youth group, it could be women group doing some activities, it could be just a school. So again, like the options are pretty broad, and you can be very innovative and creative designing your community program here. So some of the suggestions here are like this, it has to at least benefit 15 families or household. It has to be in Northern Manitoba. So also, these are some of the pictures, beautiful pictures of activities that they have been doing. So these are some of this application call for inquiry is actually posted in our Facebook, but some of the people who are ready to answer your call now. Okay, so the types of grants available. So project planning. So if you're in a very initial stage of your project planning, this is probably the first year for you to apply for funding. So your range would be 1,000 to 10,000. If you have a really small project, it could be 1,000 to 5,000, and the regular one is 5,000 to 25,000, and regular returning. So those who have been working with them for 4 years, that's the funding range they're allowed. So it's best if you complete the application, have a draft ready. Since it's very, very easy, you can always go back to them and ask them for a review or comments. Again, like that's something that I will highly recommend to do. I hope I'm not going too fast. So I'm scrolling to the next segment. Again, the deadline is November 20th. So if you're successful, you'll get your money usually in late February or early March. you are allowed to spend the money by December 1st, 2021 of this same year. They are pretty good about repurposing. So if you have, again, the money spent for community vision related to food, related to culture, they'll be happy to repurpose it. But as long as you report them and consult with them and let them know that, okay, this is what happened and we're kind of repurposing your fund from A project to B project. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. If you're a 2021 grant recipient, we ask that you share back about your project by December 1st. So these are just some of the key things. You can always find this information in their website as well. So here's a website. Your responsibilities, of course, number one is financial responsibility. Number two, like how you're giving back, story sharing, pictures, and learning. I think these are the key things that they have been focusing. They're very happy to hear like amazing success stories or stories related to challenges, pictures of any kind, and of course, what lessons you have learned while materializing and implementing your project and using this fund. So again, another thing that they really, really recommend is network and bonding with other communities and like-minded people throughout Canada. So these are some really, really cool things about them that they encourage. And this is where I would say the frustration of proposal writing is shifting. Respectful partnership is something that they practice. Here I've worked with them closely and I have seen them kind of coordinate according to the situation and challenges that the community is facing. It's always letting the community and the Indigenous leaders lead their vision. That's something really, really great and brought a lot of success stories for us. Another thing that they encourage is in-kind support. So if you're writing a proposal under this funding call, I would recommend that to let them know how much in-kind support you're having, whether people are volunteering or not, whether you're getting a free space, office space, or some free staff or not. For example, you're doing some kind of a fishing activity for the youth, and you have some fishermen's association giving you free equipments for the day. So it's something like that. So that's one of the examples. Did I miss anything?
Asfia, there's a question about if the Northern Manitoba proposal only funds communities that are north of 53rd or 53.
No. I have seen them. I think Grand Rapids, closer communities also. I think broader Manitoba is fine. Yeah. They would highly recommend for Northern Manitoba, but if it's project related to food, Indigenous communities, culture, and broader Manitoba, I'm pretty sure they will be happy to support in some way. Okay. Okay, there are some background information here. Again, like Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund, this one has an esteemed Indigenous Advisory Council kind of thing, I would say. I know some of them very personally. Amazing group of elders. We have youth. So it's you have a versatile group, different age group, and they're all bringing a lot on the table and their insights while designing this community-based service. So that's just and they have funding partners from throughout Canada, and they visit Northern Manitoba and Manitoba in different projects. every year. So you may have chances to have a heart-to-heart with them closely at some point, if you wish to, or connect with them. So they're an amazing group of people. So I would say that, here is your chance to get connected and with some really, really good projects and good people. So I guess that's there. And then I'm gonna, any questions around NMFCC funding, Northern Manitoba Food Culture and Community Collaborative Funding?
I don't see anything here.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm gonna just very briefly talk about one last thing. Here, one last thing. Different kinds of funding are available. You just have to find scopes. Walmart, Northern stores, like you have to, if you kind of do some, can I say, little bit of research in the Google, Northern store has scopes for community funding. Walmart has scopes for like maybe a few grants a year. I mean, at least I know that they used to have. So I would say explore these organizations for quick funding, small amount of funding. Another thing is you can collaborate with academic institutions. They have scopes for funding for transportation, for elders honorarium, research equipment, community gathering, so that kind of thing. There might be more scopes too. So I would say that we just have to be innovative on where to apply and how to apply. Yeah, I guess these are a few other sources that I thought that came to my mind that I thought I should share with you. Okay, and that's it. I'm gonna stop my screen sharing.
There is a question that is there any of this funding that's language specific?
They're all, I mean, those that you have to write on paper, I think, like Northern Manitoba Food Cultural Community one, that is for English. But then, as you have seen, if you want to apply orally, for which you have scope in Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund, you can use your own language and ask them for an interpreter. So that's fine too, I think.
So I'm not sure if the question means like, are these grants fund, language specific programs, or are you asking that, is the program itself is in a different language? So if you can clarify, Violet, it would be great. And then
I haven't heard anything about like any language specific of any of them. I think they're pretty broad, as long as you have some of the, they have fund language projects. I'm sure there is scope for language projects because Northern Manitoba Food Culture and Community Fund is supportive towards culture. So there is no reason that they would say no to a language project. And Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund too, if you can kind of write a proposal sharing that, we are doing this language activity that is going to be boosting people's mental health and encourage people to be going towards a healing path and holding on to our culture, something around that line. There is a scope for you to get the funding. Like, it's all about resilience and all about Indigenous peoples being well. So, kind of how you design your proposal, that matters.
there is another question from Arvin asking if this can be specifically used for cultural projects, right? Is that what you said, Irene?
Yeah, both can be. Any cultural project in Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund, And Northern Manitoba, the Northern Manitoba one is specifically for Manitoba. That's one limitation. But Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund, I think it's open to the entire Canada. So anywhere, any part of Canada you're from, you can apply for it. I think Michelle, Bill, I see another question here. Is there a Saskatchewan program equivalent to this program? Are you meaning the Saskatchewan program equivalent to the Northern Manitoba Food, Culture and Community one? I know that they are going to start one. I can provide you information after asking them. Would that be all right? I know they have been working on starting something, but not sure if they have already started yet. Any other question I missed? It is the year of language revitalization, maintenance, and promotion. I completely agree with it. Yes.
Hi, this is Irene.
Hello, Irene.
Personally, I don't like to type.
That's fine. I'm happy with it. I like to talk. So
yeah, I guess, well, I did write my question. But because I'm registered to a northern community but live in Winnipeg, could I qualify for that proposal?
yes.
If I was to, develop a cultural related, like.
Yeah. Yes, you can, because Manitoba, you're still in Manitoba, right? If
Oh no, you're breaking out.
Food cultural. It's not my luck to show my face today.
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn my camera off again.
Can you hear me now? Can you repeat yourself? I'm sorry.
Yes, I can. I said that you can apply for both funding call. Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund, you can definitely apply for it. And Northern Manitoba Food Culture Community Fund, if you're registered in North and locating in Winnipeg, doesn't matter, you can apply for it.
Okay, so, okay.
Yeah. Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you.
You're most welcome. Any other question?
I don't see anything here. No. Asfi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So how would you like to proceed on the next section? Would you like to start the end of the day discussion?
Yeah, well, we're going to have some question and answers, and but before that, I would like to ask Evan. He's one of our team members that's connected all the way from Pelican Lake First Nation. He has some experience around proposal writing, but I'm wondering if he wants to share his story or take the floor for a while.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Maya and Asfia. I really want to thank you guys for all the information that you shared and some of the best practices that we've learned here. Personally, I've learned so much, and I just want to give a shout out. I was kind of looking through the participant names. I know there's a couple names that pop up. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Verna, Delano, and Kimberly. We're all probably within about a good 2 hours from each other, and I know we're probably all learning a lot here. And my background is sports and recreation. I've worked in the field for many years, and it's always a challenge to find the resources that you need to run programs in the community. And I've been fortunate enough to take part in some community planning initiatives. And for me, one of, I guess, the success stories that we've had was I've worked with a youth council in my community, and we accessed some proposal and grant writing workshops to come into the community. We had some consultants that came and helped us, set up our governance as a youth council, and we actually set up our own bank account. We applied for for charitable status, and one of the things that we did was we worked with this youth council to apply for True Sport funding, and we received, I think it was $25,000, which we were able to use for land-based camps, leadership development. Our youth council was trained, and it was such a good feeling to know that your project was successful. And I think some of the challenges that we faced is, you know, when you're in any kind of community, is sometimes getting those letters of support from leadership. And it's I think for me, that's one of the challenges that I faced was, you know, making sure that we were able to get all those, I guess, gathering the letters. So I just wanted to, you know, open the floor up and maybe, you know, see how everyone's doing in different communities. I don't know if, you know, Verna or Michelle, if you want to come on screen and maybe share a little bit. I know Big River is a community where we're very close, and, you know, I see all the awesome things that happen in the community there, and, you know, they're a community that's really rich in their culture and their language. So maybe if maybe Verna or Michelle can, you know, join us and just kind of introduce yourselves and maybe share with the group about how things are going in your community.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michelle Bell from Big River First Nation. Hi, Evan. How are you doing? Good, good. You're on mute. But yeah, no, it's been a really huge challenge. Obviously, I'm working from home right now. We're having a large outbreak of our numbers right now. We're at, I think, 74 confirmed cases here, and you know, we're trying to do our best to try and keep things together and keeping people, you know, in a positive nature as much as you can do that, being isolated at home too, right? So we've also implemented lockdowns, like I think I mentioned, that was mentioned previous in the other application. And I think that's the one that I'm most interested in, is the Indigenous Peoples Resilience Fund, and looking at how we can partner possibly with our recreation to bring out the people from their homes, you know, like Evan had mentioned, you know, that we do have a lot of people who do have knowledge of the land and language keepers and knowledge keepers. So even if we had something of that nature to tie people to mental health is a huge issue, I think, that we see as a common theme in this whole COVID experience. So I think that's going to be one of the ways that we can combat a lot of the issues that arise as part of this scenario that we're all in, right? So I think that if we come up with those kind of creative solutions, like I was just messaging one of my coworkers there, and he was talking about setting up rabbit snares with the youth, you know, to get them out on the land again. And a lot of people are talking about basic survival skills that we grew up with and aren't necessarily being passed on a lot of the time. Sometimes, I should say sometimes, like fire, how to keep a fire, you know, things like that is very interesting how a lot of people are returning back to the land. So I think that this program in itself, you know, is really speaks to me in that way. We have had some of that in a schooling, which the kids just love. We've had cultural days in the schools where they've done, like you said, the moose hunts and all that, the ice fishing. Yeah, it's something I think that's going to keep growing, which is a really awesome thing, I think. And yeah, I won't take up too much of your time, but I just thought I'd share some of that. What I think we should be focusing more on with our elders and our youth especially.
Thank you, Michelle. I really want to thank you for sharing. Do we have time to maybe bring Kimberly and maybe see how things are going out in Sweetgrass?
Sure, we do. We have 10 minutes.
Kimberly, do you want to maybe come on screen and maybe share a little bit?
Hey, Evan, can you hear me? Oh, just wait, something's going on with my
Yes,
computer here.
we can
Yeah, we can hear you, Kimberly.
Okay, I'm trying to I seen all
No,
of
we can.
your cool headsets and whatever, and I'm like, hey, I have a headset. So I'm trying to Bluetooth and it's like messing up, but yeah. So I'm working from home today. I'm not prepared to go on screen. But other than that, I actually just switched jobs. So I'm the community navigator for Seagrass First Nation, and it's I've been an off reserve band member for about 10 years, but I'm about 20 minutes from my community. The job that I just came from, I did do a lot of program management in regards to culture, language, land-based learning, holistic wellness. I did open up a family center for Battleford Agency tribal chiefs. So it was the first of their kind in Canada, I do believe. Since then, the province has taken the idea and created their own family resource center here in North Battleford, which is pretty cool. So I did work with my community since I've been with the tribal council, or when I was with the tribal council, but in a very limited capacity to comparing it to the amount that I'm immersed in my First Nations now. So it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of, with the COVID, we do have an outbreak out in Sweetgrass right now declared. So, but even before this, it's very, like, I have to agree with Evan that relationship with leadership is important. And when you don't have it, or I feel like because I'm coming in pretty much like the third year trying to clean up what I can for this project, there's some for sure challenges there. So one of my favorite things from when I worked for the tribal council was creating proposals, ideas behind proposals, sitting with a think tank group. We actually had a brainstorming room. It was pretty awesome. But taking myself out of that and putting myself in a little office at the band office, I feel like I needed to reach out and okay, if I'm going to do this on my own, I need to refresh. So that's pretty much what brought me to this presentation. And then just listening to how other people approach different proposals and the research that they do. So I feel very fortunate to be taking part, but just unfortunately my hair is everywhere. But yeah, that's where I currently am right now. I have a big job ahead of me, so.
Okay, thank you, Kimberly, and also to Michelle, and the communities. I think right now we've been hit with about 5 feet of snow, so I hope you guys are all doing well and you guys can get out of your driveways, and things are. I think for us here in Saskatchewan, there's every community is different. Every community has their unique challenges. Every community has their strengths, and that's exactly what this resiliency fund is. Finding out. For us, for my community, oh my God, we love to round dance. That's one of the things about. I call it Pelican Lake, but for most people, it's known as Chittick Lake. So when we round dance here, and to see the beauty of the community coming together, and the last round dance we hosted, I think we had something like 600 people that traveled from the States as far as Thunder Bay and Alberta, and that's for me, in my community, that's just a show of resilience. We're still singing our songs, we're still celebrating, and as a person who has a passion for planning things in my community, I can't wait till this is all over, where we can come together again and celebrate in those ways. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, and I'm thankful for all the learning that's been going on here in the past few days. So I'll pass it back to you, Maya.
Thanks, Evan. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and thanks for other communities, other participants to share your stories too. I wish we could do this more. We could do this longer. You know, this is building relationships, and I always appreciate that. So yeah, so for now, we have about like 2 or 3 minutes for questions. Is there any questions for the Guardians program, for Resilience Fund, me, Asfia, Evan? Okay. I also wanted to mention that we have one-on-ones for all the participants to come, bring their ideas, sit together with one facilitator, and the sessions will be around 90 minutes, 60 to 90 minutes, depends on how long it takes. And then we can, write the proposal together. So there will be an email circulated to you, all of you, with, the email address that you can contact. And then based on that, we can arrange based on your availability and also some of the facilitators' availability. We can arrange time for doing one-on-ones, walk through each proposal together. Just have in mind that Guardians program deadline is on end of this month. So to get all the letters ready, we could do this earlier than later. We can start as soon as this Wednesday to work together. And you also can say in your email, if you prefer an Indigenous facilitator. We have few that are, we're hoping that they will be available. So yeah, just mention that, and then this will be sent to you in the next, day or so. So, and then we have another session on, I believe Friday, the 13th, in the morning. We'll have about 1 hour. We'll have Stefan McLaughlin as a facilitator, which he will talk about the do's and don'ts of proposal writing, but for about an hour, I guess. And then another hour, we'll have one of our other colleagues, Ramona Nakaway. She will talk about the challenges that they have experienced applying for a lot of these fundings. And then in the afternoon, we'll move to one-on-ones. But also it could be arranged for other days starting this Wednesday. Is there any questions? If not, I think we can end this session. Stay safe, everyone, and talk to you soon.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for your patience.